Today is a very special day for me, personally. It's a very special day because today I'm going to put my foot on the red TEDx dot for the 5th time, which I'm going to do now. If I put my foot there, I can't go back. So I have to do it. There we go. So if you do this, and you have the honor to be on the red dot for the 5th time, I think you should do something special. So I'm going to do something that I've never done in my life. It's the first time that I'm doing this. I'm a scientist, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a musician, but what I'm doing now is really the first time ever that I'm doing this. I hope you like it. I've written a poem for you. And the poem is called Mosquito. There we go. When the sun sinks over the edge of the horizon, when the night falls and the air starts to cool down, that's the time I wake up from my daytime sleep and I venture into town. The beat of my wings reveals that I'm around. And so my hunger and desire for blood brings danger because of a high-pitched sound. Carbon dioxide and fatty acids from your sweaty skin. I smell you from a distance, you human ape. And once I fly into your bedroom, I can see in the far infrared. Yes, in pitch darkness, I can see your shape. The stylets of my mouthparts, sharp as razor blades, penetrate the softness of your skin, where warm and juicy blood awaits. But as my stomach fills with erythrocytes rich in protein, some 10 microliters is all I need. Your immune system spoils the fun as it hastens to stop the bleed. Clotting blood obstructs my meal, forcing me to nastily reveal that I can and will outwit your immune system's efforts with antigen-laden spit. Having had that trick up my sleeve for long, fueled evolution and made others strong. Parasites, viruses and worms that make you sick and kill have found my salivary glands as their outlet to the world at will. I am sorry. It was never my intention to be as such. But as a result, I kill 1 million people a year, which is far too much. Stop me from biting you, that is your best bet. When you go to sleep tonight, seek protection under a net. Thank you. Ooh, wow. Ooh, wow, that's very nice. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a problem that you all know. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and you hear that sound around your ear, that sound? You know this, right? Yeah, you know this. So, this is, or used to be, something that is a nuisance. It would give you an itch. But these days, things are changing. Also here in Europe, even here in France, getting a mosquito bite may be very dangerous. And I'm going to talk about that. But I'm also going to talk about something really nice. A new innovation, a new thing that we have come up with to better control malaria in Africa. to protect children in Africa better against this disease, this horrible disease. But let me start here in France. I'm starting in the second week of August 2017 in the city of Moulins, in the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region, where a beautiful wedding, a garden wedding, was organized. Guests came from all over France, even from outside the country, and it was a beautiful summer night. And the guests were outside until the early morning hours drinking their wine. That's what the French do, I understand. It was a lovely wedding, and everybody really enjoyed this wedding. But 2 weeks later, in the southwest of France, somebody who had traveled back from the wedding from Moulins started to feel really sick, developed a high fever, chills, and started sweating a lot. And in fact, that person was hospitalized. A day later, on the 1st of September 2017, somewhere else outside France, another person who had been to the wedding, fever, chills, sweating. When the blood of these two people was examined in the lab and the results came back, everybody was astonished. Because both of these people who had met at the wedding in Moulins, they had both been infected with the most dangerous form of malaria in the world, the Plasmodium falciparum parasite that originated from Africa. What happened? What happened here? So these two people had not traveled to a country with malaria, and the list of guests from the wedding was checked, all the names. Nobody had been to any country with malaria. So health inspectors started to go around, informing at the hospitals and the clinics and talking to doctors, trying to find out what had happened. Until they discovered that a man from Burkina Faso had traveled to Moulins 2 weeks before the wedding and was sick. So did this man from Burkina Faso infect French mosquitoes that 2 weeks later went to the party, to the wedding, and were biting people there and giving them malaria? Maybe. But the point I'm trying to make here is that two people who had not traveled outside France came down with African malaria in 2017. And in fact, during that same summer, there were cases of malaria in Italy, in Greece, and in Cyprus. So, should we be worried? Should we be worried about this? Should you worry about this? I think that we should. There's a real reason why we should be concerned about this. Now, the problem is that very often people think, small mosquito, I mean, what can a mosquito do? Come on, small, small, small. Well, it can actually be very big, big, big. These mosquitoes can really cause very serious problems for us. Okay? And so, if we now start looking at what is happening these days around the world, we see that diseases are spreading at an unprecedented speed. Things are going really fast. But before I do that, I'm going to show you another way to explain how dangerous a mosquito really is. I can tell you that every 17th person that is now alive on the planet will die as a result of a mosquito bite. I can also tell you that every second person that ever lived on the planet died as a result of a mosquito bite. Those are impressive figures. But still people will say, small mosquito, what's the big deal? Well, I have another way of showing you what a mosquito really is all about. And it's this. So if I take off the cap of this thing, I know, just by doing this, that some of you will start to feel rather uncomfortable. We don't like syringes and needles, do we? We don't really like these things. Yet, we're using syringes to draw blood from people, and we're using syringes to inject drugs and vaccines into people. Now, the next time when you're at home and you hear that mosquito around your ears, I want you to think of this syringe and needle. Because in essence, it's exactly the same thing. Because the mosquito draws blood from you, and the mosquito injects saliva to stop your blood from clotting. So, basically what I have here is really what it's all about. A mosquito is nothing more than a flying syringe. So in Moulin, there was a mosquito, this flying syringe, biting these two people at the wedding and giving them malaria. That's basically what we're talking about. People in France becoming infected with African malaria. Now this is happening now around the world at a very fast pace. So every dot here that you see on this planet is an aircraft flying long distance around the world. In every aircraft, in every dot, there's around 200 people. These people on average have 5 liters of blood. That means every dot here is having 1,000 liters of blood in the air. With 8 million people flying every day, we've got a sea of blood of 40 million liters at 10 kilometers altitude around the planet. And in that sea of blood, there are parasites, bacteria, viruses, anything that can make you sick or kill you. In fact, here in the south of France and in southern Europe, we now have 4 African viruses that are being transmitted by mosquitoes. The Usutu virus, the Chikungunya virus, the West Nile virus, and the dengue virus. None of these diseases, there is any medication. You cannot be vaccinated against any of these diseases. So basically what I'm telling you is that a virus that is out there in the jungle somewhere in Africa can be on your doorstep in Paris tomorrow. Take the Zika virus. The Zika virus you've heard of. Until the turn of the century, there were only 16 documented human cases. Now, today, we find Zika in 80 countries around the world, putting 1/3 of the global population at risk. Wow. That's serious stuff. So, why does this bother me? Well, I've been researching mosquitoes for the last 30 years of my career. I've lived in Africa for 11 years. And in those 11 years, I contracted malaria 9 times. I survived. But my wife, she narrowly escaped death when she was infected with malaria, a really bad one, in Tanzania when we were living there. I've seen children dying of malaria. I've seen people suffering from mosquito-borne disease. And I can tell you, if you want motivation to do something about these problems, then that's what you want to see. So here's my career, and all I do now is go around the world coming up with new ways of controlling these diseases, of fighting these mosquitoes. That's what I do. Now let me tell you a nice story about this malaria. Going back to 2017, there were 219 million cases of malaria around the world. 435,000 children and pregnant women died as a result of this disease. That's a lot. But mind you, it's a lot less than 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we still had 300 to 500 million cases each year. A lot more. And close to 1 million people were dying as a result of malaria. So we've done a lot of good. And I'm going to show you that on this map. This is a map from the year 2000, Africa. And what you see here is the percentage of children between the age of 2 and 10 infected with malaria parasites. So red is 100% infected, dark blue, nothing infected. That was the situation in the year 2000. But watch the screen. When I click, we're going to 2015. Look at how these colors change. Now we're in 2015. A lot has changed. The red color is virtually gone. We've done a lot of good. In fact, 700 million cases of malaria have been averted. 7 million lives have been saved. We've done an incredible job, even in countries like DR Congo, or Southern Sudan, or the Central African Republic. Difficult countries where we still have been successful. This is a huge success for the global public health community. Today, 2018, we're talking about 10 countries, these 10 countries in Africa, that bear around 60% of the global burden of malaria. So that's why we're now going to intensify our efforts to do something about this disease. So how did we do it? And what did we do? Here you see again the scale from 2000 to 2015, and on the y-axis the percentage of children infected with parasites. It all started with 33% over the entire continent. 1 out of 3 children had malaria in the year 2000. If we would have done nothing, it would have stayed along the black line. But we started doing things very well, and we went down to less than half. 16% of the children are now, or in 2015, were carrying parasites. What did we do? 3 things we did very well. First, we started spraying houses with insecticide on the inside to kill the mosquitoes. Secondly, we distributed and made drugs more affordable and accessible around the continent. People could cure themselves. And thirdly, and this is important, the biggest contribution to the success came from letting people sleep under insecticide-treated nets. Mousquetaire, you say here. Right? So that was where the big success came from. So putting a person under a net is a good thing to do. As a matter of fact, if children sleep under nets, you halve the number of times that they have malaria in a year. Out of 1,000 children that sleep under nets, 6 actually owe their life to it. Gnats are a good thing. In fact, gnats brought malaria down to such a big level that people started losing their fear for malaria. And if you lose your fear for malaria, you may think of doing different things with your net. If there's no more malaria, you can also use your net for fishing. You feed the family with the net. Serious problem. Or like here on a fish market in Malawi where they're using nets to dry the fish. And yes, people are very creative when it comes to using their net. Lots of different ways of using their nets. Good. So, if we are dishing out nets, if we have free distribution of nets in communities, initially the coverage is really high. Everybody has a net, everybody's sleeping under the net. Everything is fine. But mostly within 6 to 12 months, we see a very rapid decline of people that are actually still using their net. Sometimes in some studies, it was shown that after 6 months, only 40% of the people that received the net were still using it. That's a waste. But at the same time, it's a really important message. Why is it an important message? Because it tells you that the 68% reduction that I showed you can even be accomplished with nets that are used for a short period of time only. Which means that if we make people sleep under a net better and longer, that we can gain a lot with the same money. The money has been spent on the net. So we need some behavioral change in people. Now, how do we do this? Well, actually, the solution that we came up with was actually rather simple. We did something really simple. And it's actually based on a universal human attribute. Namely the fact that we all have innate preferences. We all like certain smells, we all like certain tastes, we all like certain colors in the same way. And so, people like a black car, and people like a silver car, and people like a red car in the same way. So if I look back at the old Trabant vehicle that was introduced in the 1950s, it only came in the color white. There was only one color that you could buy this car in, white. And the communist East German manufacturer did not believe that this color was important. You need a car to drive from A to B, and color doesn't matter, right? And in fact, if we're looking at what organizations like UNICEF and the Global Fund are doing today, they are dishing out millions of nets that are all white. They're all Trabant cars. But people want a differentiated product. People want a beautiful product. Something that looks nice. And we believe that that's where the key lies. Make nets beautiful. Do something nice with them. Good. So, Now that we've done this, we did a trial. We went to Uganda and we started printing on nets. We printed all sorts of things on the nets, and then we asked people, what do you like? And here's the winner. The winner was Jesus. People really like to have a net with Jesus on the net. So they are protected by the Lord when they sleep at night. That makes sense, right? But something else exceeded our expectation. It actually was found that if people accidentally have a hole in the net, it gets cut or burned or whatever, a hole in the net, that if you have Jesus on it, that people started mending the net. They repaired it. You can't have Jesus on a net with holes. Right? Serious. So we then went a step further. We said, okay, kids. And kids, they love nets. Kids, they love nets with prints on it. So some of them will like this. They want a lion. It's beautiful, huh? Yeah, I think so. And kids sometimes want like this beautiful butterfly that you see in the slide. And the story that we have is the story from a 4-year-old girl in Tanzania. She got a net with a butterfly on it. And we were told by the parents that the girl was telling them that when they check on her at night, that they always have to make sure that with her face, she's always looking in the direction of the butterfly. Now I can tell you one thing. Nobody will dare to touch that net. If you dare that net, you risk your life. Right? So, we then started thinking, how can we create an even stronger sense of ownership with these nets? And I think we can. If there's one place in the world, if there's one place, one continent, where kids really like football, it is in Africa. So, it doesn't take much thinking that you can imagine what would happen if I would print this on a bed net. Children are gonna love this. Or I print Messi on a bed net. Children are now going to make their parents crazy. Please give me that net, I want that net, please give me that net, I want that net. Not because the net is protecting against malaria, but because the net is cool. It is just a cool net that you want to have. This is simple psychology. Again, if you give a boy a net like this, that net will not be used for fishing. That net will be looked after properly, like an expensive toy. So, printed nets. Make nets really nice looking. Make them nice for kids. Let them choose what they want to see printed on a net. So perhaps the big donor organizations, maybe they should reconsider what they do. They want to have nets cheap for under $2, all white nets going into Africa. But these nets may get wasted within 6 months. And we're saying, just add a little cost, put a nice image on the net, so that the child will look after it for a full 3 years and receive 6 times longer protection against malaria. And finally, if Africa ever is going to develop a retail market for nets, we better start thinking for a product that is better than a Trabant vehicle. People like differentiated products. People like beautiful products, also in Africa. In that way, we will get them to start spending money on their own nets and be less dependent on donor funding. Small innovation, big impact. Thank you.